Chapter 10 The Rogue Magician. Endelgian, May 3rd, 1990. The wizened form of Master Honorius Select stands overseeing the friendly sparring match between his apprentices Desmond Orono and Adrian Scrimauer. Master Honorius strokes his long grey beard, nodding occasionally with approval. A massive explosion blows his white hair back and briefly illuminates his face. "That's enough," Honorius says. Scrimauer lies on his back, smoke rolling off his chest. Desmond stands over him, grinning. The larger apprentice's blindingly white teeth capture the light and causes Scrimauer to squint. "You're never going to beat me," Desmond laughs and extends his arm down in assistance. The imposing young man's large body quakes with a deep roar. Chiseled muscles and a 7-foot frame make the man more likely to be a pro athlete than a magician in training. Despite this, he is the top student of his entry group. Rumors already abound of his impending promotion to provost. "All you did was reflect my attack back at me," Scrimauer complains, ignoring his hand and standing up on his own strength. "Yeah, I did." He again laughs. "Why waste my energy when I can let you do all the work for me?" Scrimauer balls his fists, ready for a second round. "Knock it off, you two," Honorius shouts, walking towards them. Supported by a cane, the old magician seems to struggle with each step. His current apprentices were announced to be his last, but they have proven to be even more work than anticipated. The teens are both headstrong and competitive. A day cannot go without them clashing for dominance. "Adrian, work on your counterspells. You could just as easily have reflected that last one back at Desmond." Said apprentice scratches his nose, arrogantly snickering. "And you are far too confident." The master smacks him in the back of his knees with his cane. "You let your guard down when you are this overconfident." "This is stupid," Scrimauer complains. "Making us hold back all the time. You're never going to see what we're actually capable of this way. Killing each other will not make you improve." "One of us would," Scrimauer fires right back. Honorius has tried to curtail the intense anger burning within the teen, but it has not been easy. He can sense a darkness inside him. A deep inferno of rage that only burns brighter over time lurks in the apprentice. A fire that constantly explores for cracks, weakness, so that it may break free. "Even without holding back, I'd still put you on your ass," Desmond says, grinning confidently. Scrimauer summons within his hand a conjured dagger. Without a command phrase or spell circle, he is able to physically manifest and condense energy into a solid object. If he were not so frightened, Honorius would be impressed. "Adrian, dismiss that weapon immediately." Scrimauer looks down, eyes wide in surprise. As soon as he sees the dagger, he loses his concentration and it loses form, breaking back apart into its component energy. I didn't," he whispers. "Go back to the dormitory and rest. Perhaps tomorrow you will have a clearer mind." He nods in shame, leaving. "Yes, master." Walking back to his dormitory, Scrimauer is lost in deep thought. The desire to prove that he is better than his rival is overwhelming, but it also nearly cost him everything. Because he has lost control of his power, he appears weaker when being forced to dial it back. It is so much easier for someone with a smaller gap between their full power and resting to hold back than for someone with a much larger gulf. All his master and the elders can see is, however, is an apprentice that constantly falls short in every one-on-one competition with his peers. "I could kill them all so easily," he thinks with frustration. Isn't that the kind of power that a master is supposed to have? A rogue or monster needs eliminated, and holding back will do no good in those situations. Sending someone that is skilled at holding back would only get them killed. Relentless crushing strength is what is needed to accomplish a mission. As he walks, he does not notice Master Tor's Forgeron. emerging from an alley between dorms and nearly collides with him. "Sorry, Master Fordron. I wasn't paying attention. I should have been looking where I was going." "Obviously." Fordron shrugs with a smile. The man's charm is infectious, and Scrimauer cannot help but return the gesture, no matter how futile an attempt this is. "How are you doing, Adrian?" "Frustrated," he replies, many emotions coming across all at once in his voice. The observant master does not miss a gesture or inflection. "The promotion of your rival? You're not happy for him." "I am. I just don't see why they are holding me back. Desmond isn't better than me. I know if we weren't always being forced to go below maximum, I could beat him." Fordron thinks on that for a moment before replying. "You feel that you are restrained too much to show your true potential?" Scrimauer nods. "Exactly. Desmond is good at kid-glove sparring matches and playing for crowds, but I know I have the sheer power to take down my opponents." "I see. I think you would be well served to gain some experience in the field. Allow me to talk to Master Select and the Elders, and try to get you onto a few light missions with my Blackwings." Scrimauer's eyes light up with excitement. "You could do that? That would be unbelievable." Fordron smiles. "Don't worry about it. I hate to see squandered talent. If you give the missions your all, everything else will fall into place." After many successful missions with Fordron and his Blackwings, Scrimauer begins to spend more and more of his free time at their barracks, until finally, after nearly a year and receiving his own promotion to Provost, he petitions to have his affiliation transferred so that it may officially be moved into the Blackwing barracks. "Are you sure that this is what you want?" Honorius asks. Behind him, Desmond stands with his arms folded. He glares at his rival with disgust. "I have learned more from Master Fordron in a year than I have in 4 under your instructions, sir." Desmond speaks up, unable to take his master being disrespected. "Master Select taught you everything that he taught me. You're nothing more than an ungrateful crybaby." Scrimauer laughs. "You can't speak down to me anymore, Desmond. I too am now a provost. I have a year on you in that regard. You only just received that promotion." Scrimauer steps forward, challenging his rival. "Anytime you're ready, I'll show you how much I've progressed." Honorius shakes his head. It pains him to see his final students so full of anger. "Please, both of you, stop. We should not be fighting each other when there is so much else out there that deserves our ire." Desmond takes a deep breath before being the first to back off. He still refuses to take his eyes off Scrimauer. "What's gotten into him lately?" Desmond asks as soon as Scrimauer is gone. "I'm afraid that isn't what has gotten into him so much as what's been allowed out." Scrimauer returns to the Blackwings barracks, where several apprentices are in the middle of a fierce battle right there in the common area. One of the apprentices conjures a massive dragon, which he sends out to devour his opponent. The other apprentice counters with a quickly erected barrier. As the dragon's fangs crack through the energy like a fragile shell of an egg, the defending apprentice is busy on his hands and knees carving a dismissal spell array into the floor. Binding his arm to initiate a flow of blood, the apprentice swipes his finger across the crimson like dipping into the inkwell, and activates the circle. Glowing brightly, the spell circle banishes the dragon in a flash of light. "I encourage my students to work out their frustrations," Fordron says, walking through the common area and stepping over the broken furniture left over from the duel. "It does no good to keep things bottled up." "I have plenty of frustrations I need to release," Scrimauer says under his breath, still angry about Desmond's arrogance and Master Select's refusal to see him for how good he really is. "Things did not go as you'd hoped. They acted like it was such a crime for me to want to switch affiliations when they were doing nothing to help me advance. I have a small detail that may give you some satisfaction. Come. Fordron leads him out of the dorm and into the master's private library. As I know you've already determined, some are selected for promotion over others, even if they are equal in skill. Yes, Scrimar says with grinding teeth. He balls his fists at the very thought of this unfair practice. This society plays petty politics. Such things should be beneath our sort, but habits seem to die hard. Perhaps political posturing and playing favorites is simply part of human nature. I do not know for sure. That doesn't make me feel any better. Fordron begins to laugh, as if Scrimar has said something overly amusing. You aren't supposed to feel better. You're supposed to be pissed off. That anger is to be expected. This society breeds injustice. Do you know what can arise from such unscrupulous practices? Scrimar slowly shakes his head. Rogues. Magicians who do not conform to the preset standards by which the elders expect us all to live within. Anyone who deviates from this carefully constructed image is labeled a rogue and an enemy and locked away, or disposed of completely. Tell me, does that seem like a way a society should operate? No, Scrimar replies emphatically. He cannot believe that the elders force strict conformity under threat of death or imprisonment. The very idea turns his stomach. Now, how does that make you feel? Scrimar hesitates. I don't know. No need to lie, boy. I will tell you how it makes me feel. I want to string the elders up in the center of town and beat them like piñatas. He catches the teen's smile and knows he has him. They would deserve that, wouldn't they? Tyranny doesn't exist in a peaceful society. Exactly, now you've got it. Many of us want Endelgion to become the shining beacon for the world it protects. If we are as corrupt as the rest of humanity, how can we then protect anyone? We need a city where we're not living in constant fear of an oppressive regime that does not tolerate anyone with differing beliefs from themselves. You're like a freedom fighter. He's eating this up. The youth are so wonderfully impressible. We want freedom, yes. Freedom to be individuals. Freedom to not live in fear of being dragged off in the middle of the night for being a so-called rogue. I want to help. I want to fight them too. Fordron smiles. This fight exists in the shadows. We cannot fight openly. The Knights of Solomon alone will be enough to overpower each of us with ease. We must claim small victories unseen whenever we can. Eventually, the elders will lose their credibility and their stranglehold on power as the rest of the city sees that we are fighting their tyranny. How do we do that? First of all, the archives are one of the most restrictive areas in the entire city. Hundreds of historical texts and important resources are heavily guarded and blocked from our view. The elders have the access to read these texts at will, but the rest of us are deemed unworthy. They claim that reading about dark magic will corrupt. Why then do they not just destroy the books? Why are they continued access? Are they above corruption? It is the height of unfairness that they restrict us from reading books that should be freely accessible to all. It is our right to be able to judge what we may or may not read. One of our supporters will be liberating one of these books tonight. If you are willing, I need you to protect him from whoever the elders send to recover the property. I won't hold back, Scrimar says with conviction. They will not be getting that book back. Endelgion Library, 3rd level access floor, 11:09 p.m. Apprentice Elijah Ali sits at a table alone reading Healing Spells and Medicinal Herbs of the Orient by Ming Jiangshe. He looks up occasionally, studying the corpulent Master Davies Graham, current administrator of the archives. The master is immersed in a tabloid magazine from the lawyer world. He pays little attention to the library's other occupants. Unlike the master, Ali closely watches each of the other people, missing little details. Two young female apprentices, bearing the water lily crest of Master Kamina Brown, giggle as they ignore their studies and instead gossip about how cute they think the Nando brothers are. At a table behind him, Ali is aware that Adrian Scrimauer is watching him just as closely. He must be the shadow Master Fordron assigned me. As soon as those girls leave, I will make my move, Ali thinks. Soon after, the female apprentices notice the time and hurry out of the library. Master Davies looks up, appearing to become slightly agitated. Gentlemen, I have not received an after-hours petition, so you need to be finishing up. Ali begins to draw out the formula for a complicated spell on his notes. Many overlapping circles cover the paper, and Scrimauer does not recognize the formula from anywhere that he has ever seen. Kisetai, Shon, Controle, Ali whispers, activating the spell and conjuring a small centipede-like creature on the paper. Hey, Master Graham shouts, standing up. No casting in the library. Ali also stands, closing his notes and walking towards the desk. Sorry, I was just trying to memorize the formula. He walks up to the desk and sets the book down to return it. Healing spells? Master Graham whispers, looking at the book. That looked an awful lot like a conjuring light. The centipede creature crawls from the notes and up the master's arm. Before he can catch it, the conjured parasite burrows deep into his ear. Master Graham screams in pain, digging at his ear as it begins to bleed. Parasitic puppetry, Ali whispers as the centipede latches onto the master's brain and completes the control spell. Open the restricted access floors. Zombie-like, Master Graham conjures a pillar of glowing red light that acts as an elevator to the other floors. Ali quickly disappears into the light. Reaching the restricted access levels, he frantically searches the shelves of black magical tomes and scrolls until he locates the specific volume he was sent to retrieve. Holding the Ritus Sanguinem in Sanshao, or the blood rites of the saints, Ali rushes back down the elevator spell and leaves the library without another word. Scrimauer stands, assuming now is the time to follow. The apprentice darts down the alleys and side streets, trying to stay off the main pathways and avoid patrols. Damn it, he whispers, seeing a patrol of knights in front of the Blackwing barracks. Fearing capture, Ali makes his way to the cavern's entrance on the westernmost edge of the city. The caverns lead out of the city to an emergency exit in the wastes, where another exit to the lower world lies. The exits are locked by powerful barriers to prevent creatures from the wastes entering the city. Possessing a barrier de-spell formula given to him by Master Fordron, Ali does not concern himself with the blockades. The apprentice's larger concern lies with surviving the undead creatures of the wastes that crave human life. If he can avoid them, he can reach the exit portal and escape to the lower world. Inside the caverns, Ali hears voices in pursuit and quickens his pace. Navigating the maze-like paths, he is spotted at an intersection as it winds back into view. Stop! Master Honorius shouts. With the master on his patrol is Provost Desmond Orono. Ali breaks into a sprint. If he is caught, they may put him to death or strip him of his ability to perform magic. Without spellcasting abilities, they will lock him away in a prison cell indefinitely. At all costs, he must escape to the lower world and hide out until Master Fordron contacts him. A flash of light ahead causes Ali to shield his eyes, and Master Honorius appears before him using a teleportation spell. His path blocked, the apprentice prepares for a fight to the death. You will not be escaping with that book in your possession. Hand it over, and your punishment will be less severe, Master Honorius declares. Refuse, and we will be forced to deal with you accordingly. The rogue nervously looks back and forth between the two. Desperation begins to set in as he realizes he has little chance at flight. The two blocking him are no pushovers, and should he manage to perform a miracle and get past them, they will not relent until they succeed. Betraying our trust and breaking into the archives is a serious offense. What's worse is that you're trying to flee back down to the lower world. The information contained in that tome is dangerous. The world is not ready to be exposed to such things. And who gets to decide that? You? Scrimar asks, catching up to them. Adrian, what are you doing here? Master Honorius asks, surprised. Am I too restricted from certain areas? Banned from what you and the elders don't wish for us to see? Now's not the time to discuss such matters. Apprentice Ali has in his possession a dangerous spellbook that must be recovered. Information should not be segregated for only some to be granted its viewing. Oppression arises from the controlling of knowledge. Keeping the masses ignorant makes them easier to control. What are you talking about? Books like this one would only wreak havoc on the world. Their light can never be allowed to escape this city. Regardless of the dangers of knowledge, it is not your right to contain it. Even someone with decades of experience could still be overwhelmed by dark magic. What do you think could happen if someone with relatively no experience were to unleash the horrors contained within that book? The possibility always exists that we may destroy ourselves, but you and the elders are not gods. You do not get to decide our fates. Honorius begins to anger at the stubbornness of his former pupil. It is my duty to protect this city and the rest of the human race from dark magical threats. Preventing evil from leaking into the world is an essential component of that protection. Ali runs over to Scrimar, setting the book down on the ground to free his hands up for battle. Come on, stop arguing philosophy with this old bastard. We can take them out together and make our way through the caverns, Ali says. He's right. Master or not, we can defeat you. You underestimated me for so long. Scrimar casts off his robe in a final display of defiance. I will not be holding back against you, as you have forced me to do so in the past. Adrian, do not make me fight you, Master Honorius says with sadness. I do not wish to inflict upon you any harm. Scrimar casts a hastening spell on his body to increase his reflexes and reaction time. Next, he enhances his muscles with the Creonle spell. With tremendously boosted speed, he flanks the Master and appears at his side. Master Honorius already has his sides protected by a row of hovering phantom swords. You're past your prime, old man, Scrimar says, conjuring his own phantom sword. He lunges with a strike, but a ghostly figure materializes from the Master's shadow, taking one of the swords and using it to block. Scrimar again attempts another strike, but again the ghostly figure parries. Using his full speed to blitz, Scrimar unleashes strikes from every possible angle of attack, but Master Honorius is able to deflect each one with his ghostly guardian. The two dance across the cavern, clashing swords in a vicious storm of magical energy and flashing conjured steel. Ali drops his palms to the ground, sending out chains to wrap around the Master, hoping he is distracted enough by the onslaught of Scrimar's speedy attacks. Desmond intercepts, raising a wall of stone to deflect the chains. Ali leaps back, tracing his finger through the air and outlines a spell circle before his feet touches the ground. Blowing his breath out, the circle activates and glows brightly. A massive phantom scorpion emerges from the circle and immediately sends its enormous tail, speeding at the provost. Diving to his side, Desmond avoids the tail as it pierces several feet through the rocky ground and back out again. Swarm! Hymenoptera! Ali chants, releasing his next attack, while Desmond is still fully occupied in dodging the scorpion's movements. A cloud of poisonous wasps fills the air. Each stinger contains a corrosive poison that will melt through flesh like acid once on contact. Master Honorius throws one hand out, sending one of his phantom swords straight through the heart of Elijah Ali. The apprentice collapses instantly, his spells vanishing with his life. Seeing how cold-blooded the master is able to kill, Scrimmeyer is filled with an anger that greater fuels his resolve to see the corrupt Endelgian system toppled. Fighting for an ideal he truly believes in, he cannot accept defeat. As his next blow is met by the phantom sword, Scrimmeyer fires a pulse of quick energy at the ceiling. Large chunks of rock begin to rain down, forcing all three remaining combatants to evade. Scrimmeyer lunges, cutting through one of the rocks in an attempt to strike an off-balance Desmond. Honorius levitates one of the rocks, slamming it into the provost's shoulder. Desmond is knocked to the ground, and Scrimmeyer's swing cuts through only air. "Always protecting him," Scrimmeyer growls with disdain. "I figured you'd do something like that to block me." Honorius winces, dropping to a knee. A long red gash opens up along the length of his back. Ali's lifeless body hangs behind the master, holding a blood-covered sword. A tendril of magical energy runs like wire from Ali's leg to Scrimmeyer's. "Morte al controle," Scrimmauer growls with hatred in his eyes. "Death puppetry." "When did you learn something this vile?" Honorius asks. "I did not teach this to you. Was it that cur, Forgeron?" Scrimmauer laughs. "This spell is what got my family to seek you out. I guess it's hard to continue loving a child who can make dead pets walk across the yard. I hate death. I have always found it difficult to accept. That is why I've created a way to bypass its finality. I never have to acknowledge a force if I am able to reanimate those it has laid claim to." "I'm sorry I did not know about this," Honorius whispers. "As a teacher, I have failed. Had you even paid me a portion of the attention you did to Desmond, you would have known. I was never anything more to you than his training partner." "That is not true. I care deeply about you both." Scrimmauer raises Ali's sword arm. "I'm done listening to your lies. You are part of the same oppression that keeps us slaves to the Elder's rules." The Ali puppet slashes down at the master, but he moves his phantom guardian into position to block. Scrimmauer rushes Desmond with the distraction, unleashing a fury of sword slashes. "Where is that usual confidence? Do you finally get it that in a real battle you can't beat me?" Scrimmauer laughs, pushing him back. Desmond keeps his focus on blocking each sword strike with the surrounding rock, remaining silent. Scrimmeyer's next slash cuts down through the rock and bites deeply into Desmond's shoulder. Pivoting, Scrimmauer rips his blade across in an attempt to cleave his rival's head. Desmond drops below the weapon just in time, and it merely whips in an arc, flinging his blood into the air. Seeing his student almost killed, Honorius pushes the Ali puppet back with a gust of magical wind and rushes forward. Scrimmauer tries to whip the puppet back around to intercept, but Desmond manages to club him across the face with a levitated large rock. The rock crumbles on impact and sends Scrimmauer crashing across the corridor like a missile. "You cannot remain focused on two opponents of our level," Honorius says, lowering a phantom blade to the back of Scrimmauer's neck. "This time it was your overconfidence that defeated you." Desmond holds a hand to his shoulder, consuming the wound in the warm healing glow of Sandatu Hele's magic. "Still lecturing me like you have something left to teach?" Scrimmauer coughs. "You already lost. You just haven't yet realized it." Screaming, Desmond flails his arms and fights against something Honorius is unable to see. He looks back over to the Ali puppet that has had its hands placed on the ground at the center of a complicated spell array. "Your puppets have the ability to cast spells?" Honorius whispers in disbelief. "Desmond, hold on!" He moves to help, but in his distraction, Scrimmauer is able to propel the master into the ceiling with a two-handed pulse of energy. Honorius collapses amongst the rocks, struggling to move. Now a puppet himself, Desmond stands in a daze, awaiting instructions. Scrimar is amused that his rival has been reduced to a helpless pawn. If he wished, he could force Desmond to end his own life. The parasitic puppetry is a very useful technique that Scrimar makes sure to commit learning to his memory for future use. I've outsmarted and outfought both of you, Scrimar brags. Will you still deny me the respect that I deserve? Respect? Honorius coughs. Is that all this is really about? Scrimar orders Desmond to walk over. No, not entirely. I do believe this city needs a grand overhaul in management and policy. Standing up for our principles, we become rogues and are hunted down like animals. You did not hesitate to murder Ali. Why should I show you any mercy? Murder? You are an enemy combatants, which gives me equal justification to end your lives. He moves Ali into position behind Desmond, who he forces to kneel. Say goodbye to your favorite and final student. I never had a favorite. You were both like sons to me. No more lies, Scrimar shouts. I don't believe any of them. I was a blind fool to have ignored your pain for so long. You were far more troubled than I ever imagined. For that I am very sorry. Stop talking down to me, Scrimar orders Ali to raise his phantom sword. Seeing that he has run out of time, Honorius closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. I'm sorry, Adrian, but I have to end this. Master Honorius lunges for Scrimar, thrusting his blade out. Surprised, Scrimar sidesteps and his own weapon impales the elderly magician. Honorius coughs, vomiting blood. The Ali puppet collapses and Scrimar notices that the master's blade has severed his control energy, tying them together. Desmond drops to his hands and knees, expelling the parasite from his body. Sweating, screaming, and bleeding from his ears and nose, Desmond looks up to see his master run through by his rival's sword. Master! Desmond screams as Honorius slides down the blade, his eyes lifelessly staring forward. Scrimar backs away, his face flushed white. Filled with fear and regret, he cannot believe that he's actually killed a man. I didn't, he whispers, still backing away. He can't force himself to look at the body of the fallen master. You heartless bastard! Desmond growls, hatred burning in his eyes. Tears stream down his dark face. He was our teacher. He practically raised us both for the last 4 years. How could you? I didn't want anyone to die, Scrimar whispers, also now in tears. He came at me and I had to react. On the ground beside Ali's body lies the stolen book. Scrimar hesitates, staring at the forbidden text. You aren't getting away. Not after what you've done, Desmond declares, setting his features hard in determination. What choice do I have? I can't go back. I can never go back. He bends down, picking up the book. I really am sorry, Desmond. Scrimar runs farther into the caverns, leaving his rival to his grief among the dead. July 26th, 1998. Muskegon, Florida. Provost Gulnaz Lowry trails Adrian Scrimar as the rogue magician pulls his car into the dirt driveway of Damien Rodnovich. The yard is poorly kept, with the cart up on cinder blocks in the grass. In the backyard, Rodnovich tosses around Jake Stewart. Scrimar exits his car and walks around the side of the trailer, carrying a case of beer. Still at it, huh? Scrimar asks. Jake leaps at Rodnovich with a head-level kick, but the larger man easily grabs the teen by the ankle and pulls him into a punch to the chest. Jake hits the ground hard, his heart skipping several beats. Surprisingly, Jake crawls back to his feet. I haven't gotten strong enough, Jake says, blood drooling from the corners of his mouth. Take a breather, Rodnovich says. I need a beer. He walks over to Scrimar, who hands him a can. Did you take care of that thing? Scrimar shakes his head. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Rodnovich brings the can to his lips but pauses. The beverage obscures his lips so that they cannot be seen from a distance. Did your dumbass realize you were followed? Yeah, Scrimar replies without looking. He's been following me for about a day and a half. I'm not quite sure how he got my trail after all these years, but he's definitely from Endelgian. You fucking idiot, Radnovich growls. Why'd you lead him here? I can't have those fuckers poking around my property. I'll handle it, Scrimar says. He won't report back to anyone. See to it. I'll have to kill you myself if you screw things up. Scrimar swallows hard. I know. Radnovich drinks the beer quickly and crushes the can in his hand before throwing the trash at Jake. All right, break time's over. Scrimar vanishes, reappearing directly in front of Provost Gonaz. The Provost leaps back in surprise. I know you've been following me, Scrimar says. You're going to put a strain on my personal relationships if you keep this up. Gonaz reaches into his robe for a teleportation orb, but Scrimar quickly snatches the spell from his hand before it can be used. Vasavi Shakti, Scrimar says, summoning a serpent around his arm. As the serpent reaches the mage's hand, the creature launches itself like a dart, piercing the chest of Gonaz. The Provost falls to his back, lifeless. Scrimar grins, smashing the teleportation orb and tossing it onto the mage's body to return him to Endelgian. Stop sneaking around and come for me yourself! The rogue's voice is carried with the magic of the teleportation orb, allowing it to be heard when Gonaz's body materializes on the street outside of the dormitory of Master Desmond Orono. Desmond balls his fists in anger as the Provost's body appears before him, along with Scrimar's personal challenge. Be careful what you ask for, old friend, Desmond growls. Your days of spitting in our faces are finished. Soon you will face justice for your crimes. July 27th, 1998. Muskegon, Florida. The strike team, led by Masters Desmond Orono and Jen Kurdesk, close on the secluded compound of the rogue Adrian Scrimauer. The wilderness surrounding Scrimar's cabin is treacherous, and the dark mage has hidden hundreds of circles of traps magic to deter anyone from trying to get too close. Of the 8-member unit sent to apprehend Scrimauer, 2 have been taken out of the fight by the trap magic before ever reaching the compound. There's more trap magic here, Provost Naya Harris says, her eyes glowing with perception enhancement magic. The entrance is blocked. We can't proceed any further. Master Kurdesk chuckles. We will just have to make our own door. He touches the wall, using reconstruction magic to create a new doorway. Clever, Scrimar says as the mages enter. Though I kind of just expected you to blast your way in. We are more civilized than you, Adrian, Desmond says. Hello, old friend, Scrimar grins. Nice to see that you're doing well. Blue is a good color on you. You gave me a purpose, Desmond says. You gave me a motivation to become a strong master. And you're welcome, Scrimar says with a smile. If that's all you came for, you can see yourselves out. You are under the arrest for the murders of Master Honoris Select and Provost Gulnaz Lowry, the breaching of the restricted archives, and the stealing of forbidden texts, Master Kurdesk says. Oh, that, Scrimar mutters. But those books came in so very useful. Allow me to show you what I've learned. Nandaka! He quickly casts a forbidden form of fire magic. Cursed flames spread out from Scrimar's palms and engulf Master Kurdesk. Varunastra! Provost Holier Pazed shouts, summoning a wave of water to douse Master Kurdesk. Master Kurdesk drops to a knee, badly burnt. He concentrates and closes his eyes before placing both palms against his chest. Reconstruya Helez! He transmutes his own cells in his order to undo the damage with a form of his reconstructive magic. Well, if that isn't just the most unique way of healing I've ever seen, Scrimar observes. I'm impressed with your creativity. Master Kurdesk touches the floor, causing a stone pillar to rise up beneath Scrimar and propel him through the roof. Provost Rabin Mura and Petri Taltos leap outside, their muscles enhanced by Crionle, and attack the rogue from the sides with lightning magic. The spell stuns Scrimar, but he's able to dispel the attacks after a moment, throwing his hands out to the sides. Garuda Nostra, hurrah! Scrimar shouts, hitting the Provost with tornado-force winds. Desmond grabs Scrimar's leg with a phantom hand and slams the rogue back down through the roof. Scrimar sits up, coughing, and clears himself from the debris. You really have gotten stronger, Scrimar coughs. And I see that you're using Master's phantom magic. Desmond sends out another phantom hand, but Scrimar blocks the spell with another Nandaka Hellfire Blast. Master Cudess attacks from behind, reconstructing some of the debris into a battering ram. Scrimar is slammed into a wall and drops to a knee. I seem to be at a disadvantage here, Scrimar coughs. One-on-one, none of you are my equals. Why don't you stop ganging up on me and fight me like men? Stand down, Master Cudess orders. You are only going to get yourself killed. We would like to bring you into custody alive, but that is not a requirement of this mission. Huh? Is that so? Scrimar asks. Whatever shall I do? Desmond has a bad feeling in the pit of his stomach. Everyone, be on guard. I think he's planning something. Scrimar scrawls a summoning circle on the floor with his blood and withdraws a large, two-handed magical sword from the spell. Desmond tries to grab the rogue with his phantom arms, but Scrimar is able to dispel the attack with a single swing of his oversized sword. Master Cudess turns to attack, but both of his hands drop to the floor in a geyser of blood. No more of that pesky reconstruction magic, Scrimar says. Provost Harris rushes in to heal the master, but Scrimar sends her across the room like a rag doll, with another Ahura-level Garda Nostra spell. Desmond and Provost Hilaire try to move in, but Scrimar hits them both with wind magic. Glorious Lord of all things, proud and powerful, I beseech thee, Lord Vidatu, please send a pathetic weakling like myself your supreme assistance. Scrimar uses his blood to scrawl the complicated summoning arrays and pierces the large sword into the center of the circles to activate the spell. A massive clawed hand reaches from the abyss to claim the sword and crawl free from its own dimension. What do you want, worm? Saint Manio, called Vidatu, asks. The creature scans the room to see the other mages. You called me because you cannot handle these pests yourself? Pathetic. I am not an all-powerful saint like the great Vidatu. Scrimar grovels. Playing to the vanity of the saints is the key to keeping them on a summoner's side. The saint chuckles. Your flattery is well done. Damn it, Desmond whispers in fear. He's learned to summon one of the saints. One of the saints? Hilaire whispers, trembling. We can't fight a saint. We have no other choice, Desmond replies. We would not be able to escape in our condition. The speed and power of a saint far exceeds our own, even if we were not already fatigued. Hilaire cannot stop himself from shaking. I can't. Get control of yourself, Desmond growls. You cannot show any weakness to a saint. It's like blood in the water to them. Hilaire makes a run for the door, but is cleaved in two by Vidatu's sword. Master Arona, please lend me the usage of your phantom magic, Master Cudess asks. Desmond summons two phantom arms to replace those lost by the injured master. You are no threat to me whatsoever, Vidatu mocks, stepping on Master Cudess before he can cast any counteroffensive. Provost Taltos and Mura run inside to help Desmond to his feet. What should we do now, Master? Mura asks. I don't know, Desmond whispers in despair. The power of a saint is beyond any mage. What is this saint's power? Taltos asks. Maybe knowing its gimmick will give us Some way to combat it more effectively. No, nothing will help, Desmond whispers. We've already lost. Coming here was folly. Provost Taltos slaps the master across the face. Don't you dare give up. We are still alive, and that means we still have a chance. Now, what the hell is this monster's deal? Desmond blinks several times in disbelief. Vidatu is the saint of treason, he finally whispers. That's appropriate, Mura says. No wonder these two have hit it off so great. I am growing bored, Vidatu growls. You have wasted my time by summoning me for such a mundane task. I apologize for my human weakness, Grimauer continues to grovel. I could never compare to your greatness. What is easy for you is an impossible feat for one as minuscule as I. How low have you fallen, Adrian? Desmond asks. Groveling before a glorified devil. It is not wise to provoke a saint, Grimauer cautions. Vidatu turns towards Desmond and glares. I do not like this one. I will kill him because I want to, not because you asked. Provost Mura begins to visualize the spell symbols to cast his trademark adhesive magic. Piege alcole. The floor all around Vidatu and Grimauer becomes a giant glue trap. The saint takes a step forward, becoming ensnared. What? Vidatu remarks in surprise. Aliad Arwanmia, Desmond shouts, extending a phantom hand outwards into a punch. The strike connects with Vidatu's chest, suddenly erupting into a series of dozens of fast phantom strikes that leave indentations across the saint's flesh. Vidatu nearly loses his balance, taking another step to stabilize himself, but serving only to trap his other foot in the glue. Desmond refuses to let up, continuing to fire off phantom punches from a distance. Vidatu swings his sword outward, the shockwave speeding towards the mages. Taltos quickly raises a barrier, but the spell does not slow the energy at all. The barrier shatters, knocking the three mages to their backs. As they get back to their feet, Vidatu hurls his sword at them. The mages attempt to dodge, but realize in horror that they too are now trapped by Mura's spell. Desmond locks eyes with Grimauer in hatred. Dispel! Mura shouts, undoing his spell so that they are able to dodge the sword. Vidatu lunges, grabbing his sword and whipping it to the side in order to connect with Provost Mura mid-dodge. The mage is reduced to a bloody mist upon impact with the sword, leaving nothing behind but gore. That was some impressive trap magic, Grimauer says. Too bad I was able to use it against you. Damn you, Desmond growls. You once would have given your life to stop a monster like the Saints. That man died a long time ago, Grimauer says. And you should have died with him. But instead you cling on to the lies of a corrupt and unfair society. Today, I will absolve you of the sin of living too long. You won't kill me, Adrian, Desmond growls. I am fighting for so much more than you. I won't have to, Grimauer laughs. Vidatu looms over the remaining mages, snarling with anger. The saint feels like it's been made a fool of. Desmond stands against the most terrifying creature he's ever before seen. One of the elite, Sansmanu, or Devilnay saints. Vidatu towers over the nearly 7-foot-tall man by well over 3 feet. Humanoid in appearance, as in bipedal and having a torso and a head. Vidatu's commonalities with mankind end there. The saint is covered with ape-like fur, and has a second face on the back of its head to represent its treacherous nature. Vidatu's head is covered in ornate headgear and its body decorated with a patchwork of armors taken from slain enemies. 2 deep red eyes glow from the darkness of the beast's face, hidden behind the layers of headgear. How could you summon something so vile? Desmond asks. He cannot believe how far into evil his old companion has slipped over the years. Vile? Vidatu is a saint, Scrimar laughs. His comment seems to amuse the devil as well as it emits a rumbling laughter. Master, what shall we do now? Asked Taltos, one of the two remaining magicians of the once 8-person strong strike team that included 2 masters. Felled by the deadly traps and dark magic of the rogue magician, none were prepared for this mission. Take Naya and return to the city. Report to the elders what you have seen, Desmond says, gesturing towards Provost Naya Harris, who crouches nearby. The young woman cradles an injured arm and her face is spotted with blood. Unlike many of her fellows, she still lives. We cannot let you face this master alone, Naya says. We will stay and see this mission through to completion. No, I am telling you to go. The elders must know what Scrimar is capable of. So touching, Scrimar says, placing a hand over his heart. The impressionable youth look up to you now as a role model. Taltos makes a move for the exit, but Vidatu cuts him off by slashing its massive sword less than an inch from him. The prophet stumbles back, blood running down his forehead and chest. His face is ghostly white, and the strong smell of urine fills the air. Did the kid just piss himself? Scrimar laughs. Good grief! The recruiting is scarce, isn't it? Vidatu withdraws its blade from the ground and turns, standing over the young provost. Please finish this up, Scrimar tells the saint. I need to begin salvaging what I can of these bodies for corpse puppets. Desmond launches himself forward, tossing Taltos out of the way and taking a glancing blow from Vidatu's sword to the arm in process. Even though he was only grazed by the weapon, Desmond's left arm hangs lifelessly to his side, becomes drenched in blood. How noble of you. You've matured a lot over the years, Desmond. And you are still as jealous and vengeful as ever, Adrian. Scrimar growls, waving Vidatu on to kill them. Desmond turns, but is hit in the back swing and sent crashing against the wall. Taltos screams for an instant as the blades cross-sect him into 10 separate bloody pieces. As a skill of his treacherous nature, Vidatu was concealing more weapons beyond the sight of the humans. Desmond crawls to his feet, blood running into his eyes and impairing his vision. His head throbs, and he is pretty sure he has a concussion. As he looks up, Naya attempts to strike the saint with a burst of fiery magic. Vidatu turns, whipping one of its swords horizontally in a flash that severs the girl's head from her neck. Desmond stares on as the final member of his strike team is felled. The head of Naya rolls across the floor as her body collapses. Blood sprays from the girl's neck in a fountain of red. Vidatu grins, licking the blood off its face as some splashes on it. Desmond has little fight left in him, with one arm out of the fight. Blood runs down his face, and his left eye is also swollen shut. What's happened to you, Adrian? Scrimar smiles, using his power to keep Vidatu under control. I should ask you the same question. Years ago, you were a step ahead of me. Now look at you. I did not betray my friends and peers to gain power. You're disgusting. Betray? Scrimar laughs. You don't even know what you've gotten yourself into. Trudging along as the brave little soldier, you have never thought to question things. It was us who were betrayed. The elders have never had us in their best interests. Do you really believe me to be the only one who have seen the truth? I do not stand against the elders alone. When the time is right, I shall strike and take back Andelgian. The Blackwings, Desmond whispers. Fordron is in on this scheme. Scrimar instructs the saint to finish his final remaining opponent. Believe what you will. It doesn't really matter. Vidatu charges, raising his large sword. Desmond closes his eyes, bracing for the end. I was wrong to think that you could still be saved, he whispers as the blade comes down. Phantom hands suddenly rise up to catch the sword and hold it at bay. You haven't accepted your fate after all? Scrimar asks, surprised. While the phantom hands struggle to hold back Vidatu, Desmond begins scrawling a series of complicated spell arrays on the floor with his own blood. Now that there are no witnesses, I can fight you without holding back. Witnesses? Scrimar whispers. He recognizes the spell arrays in horror. Impossible! You couldn't have learned that summoning! Sometime later, blood drips steadily to the floor from Master Aronio's face. His left arm hangs lifelessly at his side, also covered in blood. Barely able to keep his eyes open, the mage limps out of Scrimar's compound and staggers towards the forest. Yeah! Run away! Scrimar coughs, lying on his back. The rogue's body is battered and bloody. The two classmates waged a brutal war on each other, leaving them both near death. Desmond leans his back against a tree, struggling to catch his breath. I was unable to finish the mission. My entire team died. I am a complete failure. I cannot return to Endelgia in a disgrace like this. It's better for everyone to think that I too was killed. He looks back at Scrimar's compound. I will return and finish this fight, not as a mage of Endelgion, but Master Honorius's avenger. I promise. I will make you pay for all the lives you stole, Adrian. This is not over. Endelgion, July 29th, 1998. Captain Akanzi Arisai paces back and forth in the main hall of the barracks of the Knights of Solomon. It has been 2 days since Master Aronio's team reported in, Vatus says. We must assume the worst. Akanzi punches a wall in anger, leaving a large hole in the crystal. Blood runs down the mage's knuckles. Damn that Scrimar! How could he have left us a provost and grown powerful enough to have taken down a team led by 2 experienced masters in just 8 years? To be fair, Master Aronio was Scrimar's classmate, and look how much he advanced in that same time frame. We have no idea the kinds of dark magics that Scrimar was able to learn from having that forbidden book in his possession. We have to send in another team, Akanzi says, taking a deep breath to calm himself. We cannot take any chances this time. This team must be led by the Knights. Sir? Vatus asks. Are you suggesting we mobilize a kill squad rather than an apprehension team? Akanzi nods. I am. Scrimar has proven to be too dangerous to be taken in alive. Only we have the power to ensure that he is no longer a threat. You do not have the authority to make that decision, Captain, Elder Guerin says as he is followed into the barracks by Elders Falv and Strom. Not alone, you don't. These circumstances warrant war powers, Kanzi growls. If the threat is deemed serious enough, you know as well as I that I can unilaterally dispatch a team of the Knights to quell the disturbance. We need Adrian Scrimar brought back alive, Elder Falv says. He may possess important information that we need. What kind of information? Kanzi asks, eyeing the elders suspiciously. What are you not telling me? Master Nando is already readying another team to lead a strike against the rogue. You will stand by until the Knights are dispatched in an official capacity. If you go against this order and act of your own accord, we will designate you and every member of your team as a rogue and treat you the same as Scrimar. Master Nando, Vatus asks. You're sending my brother? Elder Strom nods. Cyril has demonstrated that he is more than capable of handling himself in the field and leading an apprehension team of this magnitude. Master Saorian Khan Pasha will also be assisting in the raid. Not to speak ill of the dead, but Masters Aronio and Kurdesk were hardly on the same skill level as your brother. Vatus nods. There's no doubt that Cyril is an excellent mage, but we do not know enough details about what happened to Master Aronio's team to hastily send in another team so soon after. We do not make any decisions hastily, Lieutenant, Elder Guerin says, annoyed. Understand that all of our decisions are carefully weighed and debated. We are not authorizing this mission lightly. Vatus backs down. If you don't mind, I would like to see my brother off and wish him good luck. The elders nod. You are dismissed. August 29th, 1998. Muskegon, Florida. Scrimmeyer stares out the window of his small cabin, situated in the middle of a remote cypress swamp. The rogue has the entire area surrounded by defensive trap spells. A pair of red-eared slider turtles slip off a log into the black water. Somewhere nearby, a chorus of frogs sing loudly. The location is serene, and Scrimmeyer finds it perfect for centering his thoughts. The rotting bodies of previous Indelgian strike teams lay outside to keep the stench at bay. 2 have been dragged off into the swamp by gators, but he believes he still has enough of them to use as further defense against the inevitable next team to come after him. Let them continue to make sacrifices against me, Scrimmeyer whispers, still looking outside. Nothing they do will be effective. You won't get away with this. Master Cyril Nando coughs. His body is broken and he barely clings to life. The mage is held suspended from the ceiling by chains. Scrimmeyer has kept the sole survivor of the latest strike team alive for his own amusement. I already have, Scrimmeyer says. I already know every move Indelgion is going to make. There's nothing that can surprise me. Behind him looms the form of the Saint Bidatu. But they are in for many surprises.